Hey, hey, hey. Oh, nice t-shirt. Looks like you've been hanging out with Ingmar.
Yes, yes. How are you, Exiled? I'm calling from
I'm
Miami.
cool, man. Looks like sunglasses are in. I only got these clear ones, so but you guys are wearing how's Bitcoin Miami been for you, man?
It's been great. It's been great. I had the opportunity to meet some cool people from the wider Bitcoin ecosystem, people from the sovereign community. That's where I got this beautiful shirt. Yes, learning a lot, honestly, and getting to know different people from the not only Bitcoiners but also people that are really loving sovereign and that are hearing all of the innovation that's happening. So really a great time.
Yeah, man. Cool. So go for it and take 35 minutes and let people know, about your project and how it's intersecting with what we're implementing on Sovereign. And after that, we'll come back and I'll ask you a couple questions and we'll hang out a little bit more till the top of the hour.
Sure. Sure. Thank you, Exal. So yes, babblefish or babelfish, depending on your pronunciation. Um, it's actually a cool story for the name, and it's a good way to explain what it does. Um, so if you're a sci-fi fan, you may have heard about a book called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and in it, there's this fish that you plug into your ear, and it helps you communicate with any creature across the galaxy. So it's a translating device. And so we call this project Babelfish because we realized that there's a lot of fragmentation in the stablecoin space. We've been seeing this for a long period of time. I was hearing some of the previous conversations here, fascinating conversations, by the way, about the need to create also crypto-backed stablecoins because that's what we need. And there's a lot to talk about that. But I am a sovereign, and I want to make this project better. And like me, there's thousands, and soon there will be hundreds of thousands and millions. To get to millions, to get to the first 100 million users, we need to make it really, really easy to get into the space. And we know that stable coins are that familiar currency gateway that makes it really easy to onboard users into the decentralized economy. So how do we bring stablecoins over to Sovereign? We have great projects right now that are Bitcoin-backed stablecoins that are doing a great job that are rootstock native. And then we have, for example, over $100 billion of stablecoin liquidity, say in Ethereum and in Binance. 80% of that liquidity, so 80 billion, it's from fiat-backed stablecoins. One is opaque, and the other one is following the guidelines, and then the other 20% it's being competed away by many different small projects. So this creates many issues from risk being the main one, to also increase centralization, so it defeats the purpose of what we're doing in a way. Yeah, I would say that the biggest risk is idiosyncratic risk, but there's also an issue when it comes to usability, both from a user interface point of view and also by market efficiency point of view. So this is something that people from the community at Sovereign have been discussing for a while. I think even before Sovereign was created, we saw this problem of stablecoin liquidity being fragmented across the different flavors of stablecoins that you have in cryptocurrency. So if you go to a centralized exchange or a decentralized exchange and they accept a few different stablecoin flavors, you will have, let's say, BTC against USDT or BTC against USDC or BTC against DAI. And then what that is creating, you may know it, but that is basically fracturing the entire combined dollar liquidity. It's being divided over those three pairs. So that creates a lot of market inefficiencies when they're all supposed to have the same dollar pair. All of these stable coins are competing to really do the same thing. Now that problem is becoming, it's being multiplied right now as we go into a multi-chain space. So because as we go into a multi-chain space, you have not only do these stablecoin flavors continue to be incompatible between one another, even though they're all supposed to be $1. Now, when you breach the same stablecoin brand that you have into a different chain, and then you want to exchange it for the same stablecoin in a different exchange in that chain, but it turns out that they use different bridges. Now that doesn't work either. So basically, you have fragmentation of flavors, and then you have fragmentation of bridges. So for us, we don't see really stable coins. We don't see colors in stable coins. We don't see flavors in stable coins. For us, they're all just $1. We see them as a temporary solution that we need to onboard a lot of people into the decentralized economy. We think it's one of the most exciting areas. The pegged asset category in the crypto space, I would say it's as exciting as Bitcoin. It's really an exciting thing to be in. So we started discussing Sovereign members and members from the Blockchain Whispers community as well, and members from different communities from around the world, many of whom I've met here as well. I've been fortunate to meet different members, put a face to the pseudonyms. And we realized, okay, we should just aggregate all of this stablecoin liquidity that we have in Ethereum or in Binance or even in Avalanche and any other EVM compatible chains out there to begin with. So we take a simple pool, we accept USDC, we accept USDT, we accept DAI to begin with. We take them, we create a meta stablecoin from them. We bridge that meta stablecoin over to Rootstock to be used as sovereign. That's what we proposed. And then basically we can bring all of this available $100 billion plus liquidity available in these EVM chains, seamlessly bring it over to sovereign, while at the same time hedging the risk in a basket. So you're not only using Tether, if you have Tether, you're hedging it with USDC and DAI. If you have DAI, you're hedging it with Tether and USDC, and so on. But not only that, what Bubblefish really does very simply, and this is something that wasn't possible to do up until a year ago, now we have lending markets. So stablecoins are now paying over 10% in most DeFi protocols. USDT is paying, for example, over 10% at sovereign. So we're going to take the collateral in the parent chains, and we're going to be lending it out in the best lending protocols that the community will vote on to decide, okay, where should we lend the collateral that we're bringing over? And then we're going to be taking the yield that we will be earning in the collateral, sort of as a bank does, but instead of keeping it to ourselves as a bank does, we're going to use it to buy Bitcoin insurance for the community. And so it's a very simple product that makes a lot of sense, and it needed many things to happen for it to occur now and to have such a simple solution. Chief amongst them is having a protocol like Sovereign, a community such as Sovereign giving their support to allow Bubblefish to have a proof of concept, but also evolutions in lending markets, evolutions in just the entire space. It's fascinating. And so we're going to have a token sale. The whole reason to have a token sale that we are going to be doing on the week of the 21st. We've been pushing it many times. We just want to make sure that once we have the token sale, we can have the product completely integrated in Sovereign as well. We want to make sure that it works the way that things at Sovereign are working, and to do things with purpose. So we expect that the first sale will happen the 21st, and then after the first sale, once that is complete, or within 48 hours, we will go to the second sale, and then the token generation event will happen by the time that both sales are completed. And why that's important is that we can have a governance ready to go from launch, because we do not really want to make all of the decisions about where are we going to be lending, or which stablecoin should we start accepting or rejecting, or what should we do with the Bitcoin insurance. There's a lot of cool experimentation that will need to take place, a lot of research and development, and the best way to do that is with the community. So we're going to be starting it right now with just an even distribution amongst USDC, USDT, and DAI on Ethereum, plus BUSD on Binance, evenly distributed. But then we need governance immediately to start saying, okay, let's add this one, so let's go to this other chain, and where should we lend, where should we not lend? And what we're really excited about this project, it's where it can take us, together with Sovereign, together with the wider Bitcoin ecosystem, as we build on Bitcoin Layer 2 and Bitcoin Layer 3. Once Bubblefish really is successful, proving that such a simple product can work, and if we get to have a sufficiently large pool of Bitcoin insurance, then we can start doing really cool things. I know that in Sovrythons, there's also like a bounty for stable coins, crypto backed. I would love to discuss more with the sovereign community, included the Babelfish community there. Perhaps if we get to have once we have if our governance can make a vote before the hackathon is over to be able to be involved in that and support it, we really want to get even more active in that in that area as well. But yes, I think that's basically the main objective of Babelfish. It's a very simple solution that is doable today, that can absorb stablecoin liquidity from other chains while keeping the lending markets in those chains healthy, because we're using the collateral, bridging it over to rootstock, which we will also use to buy the Bitcoin insurance, and then we can start learning more about the whole ecosystem and creating standards that will really create a healthy ecosystem, and also enable not a winner take all, but rather enable creative people from around the world that may not have the connections or the resources to do a good stablecoin organization to try and experiment. And so long as there is demand for those projects that we can find, we should be able to onboard them. And yeah, I think everybody that is working on the Babelfish protocol, again, it's a group of pseudonymous people, but that comes from Sovereign, that wants to help Sovereign, and it's bringing different communities as well. Very creative, very decentralized, and we really have high expectations also to help facilitate. The whole point of stablecoins is to facilitate, the marginalized as well. So once we're sufficiently large, here in Miami, we've been meeting a lot of organizations that do the on-ramps from traditional on-ramps across Latin America and in Africa, finding ways not to on-ramp because we will not be issuing our own stablecoin. But when it comes to off-ramping or perhaps doing peer-to-peer trading between the stablecoin markets that we have, there's a lot of cool innovation that can start to happen. And I think that's what makes Babelfish really cool. It's we don't see difference between stablecoins or just a dollar for us. We want to encourage R&D in the space, and we want this to be decentralized innovation. So yeah, really happy to be having the opportunity to build this with everyone, and I think we're really going to have an amazing impact from what I'm hearing from the people around here.
Is Babelfish Money is chain agnostic then, in that sense? I mean, we're implementing it here on RSK, on Sovereign. Babelfish Money is something that could be implemented elsewhere on other chains?
Yes, so that's a great question. Someone actually, I think, asked on Twitter recently. So yes, the whole point of Babelfish is to be a multi-chain solution. Sovereign is our proof of concept, and then if it's successful, they're very successful, we will take, for example, XUSD, which is our meta stablecoin, we could take it elsewhere. But the priority right now for the project, and then we will see how the roadmap evolves. The priority is to bring stablecoin liquidity to rootstock with non-native rootstock stablecoins. But yes, it is possible, and it's something that's on the roadmap, that then we can help, for example, Bitcoin layer 2 native stablecoins, if they want to port over and be used in different chains, that they could also use our system if there is demand for them. Absolutely. Can be done.
So let's then move into the Fish token launch that's going to be happening on Origins as the first token after Sovereign that will be launched on Origins. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Something specific? I don't like to talk so much about it, but I guess
well, I guess yes. I'm gonna be a little bit difficult here. Okay, I like everybody, and I'm a very, very friendly person in our community. But I also like to attack the hard issues.
Right.
And that issue is essentially around what some people see as the preferential treatment for the blockchain whispers community. And so I'm just going to talk totally from my own personal point of view right here. I've never heard of blockchain whispers. I've been involved with Sovereign for 5 months. I hear people arguing on our forums and in our channels that blockchain whispers, made Sovrython happen. So I'm really, really curious about what blockchain whispers actually did from your perspective for Sovrython, because I don't see them in any of our Discord channels. I want to know who is blockchain whispers and why is it that they have first day sale opportunity for the launch of your token?
Yeah, cool. That's a great question, and we had a lot of debate about this.
So tell me who they are, man, and what's their history? How did they get hooked up with Sovrython? How did they get hooked up with Babelfish Money? If I'm clueless, a vast majority of our community is clueless. Okay.
Sure.
So.
Sure. So this is really a great question, and we had a lot of debate about this when Babelfish first launched. So Babelfish, I guess the first tweet was just I don't know, less than 2 months ago, and now we have over 3,000 active Discord members and close to 2,000 followers, and a very active community that's doing a lot of cool art and also programming, etc. So Blockchain Whispers is just this community that includes, I don't know, I would say there's probably over 200,000 members, and it's just one of these many communities that exist in the crypto space. So it's interesting. People from our parents' age, people in the ages 60 plus, they would tell us never mix friends and business. Bad idea. But today, what we're doing is creating and reinventing money with online friends. So if we want to have successful projects, we need to be part of communities that are large and that trust in each other and that join each other in different projects going on in the space, across the R&D and different projects. I don't know if I'm still online. Yeah, cool. Blockchain Whispers is one of these projects. They've invested in different projects. For example, I don't know if I can disclose all of the names, but they've invested in algorithmic stablecoins. They've invested in insurance protocols, and they've stuck with them even after there's like exploits or there's like something bad happens. They've proven to be a community that invests not only in the long term, but that also brings talent. It's such a diverse community from around the world that it brings a lot of talent. So many people in Sovrython's team right now.
This is really cool propaganda. Who are these people and what do they do? I don't mean they're people.
Yeah.
What's their names? What does Blockchain Whispers do? Yeah.
Right.
For the community. What is their place in the ecosystem? What do they do? Do they write code? Do they make investments? Who are these people? I've been in Bitcoin for 12 years, and I've never heard of Blockchain Whispers. So please tell me, what do they do?
So I wouldn't classify. So it's a community, right? So it's not one name. It's hundreds of thousands of names. There's over, I would say, like 250,000 people, members. Blockchain Whispers in itself, it's just a community of people that are in there to get signals from someone called D and someone called Y. But besides that, many friendships have happened through that system, through that community. So it's a community that started there. And then basically,
give me some examples, okay? The only place I've ever heard this name is involved with Sovrython, okay? What are the things that this community has done? What are the projects that they've signaled on? What are the projects that they've been involved with? Please.
So one good project was BZYX. So that was a good signal. I think it was BZYX, and they got exploited recently, and the community basically decided to believe in them and stick with them. But one that really matters for Babelfish, and that it matters when D reached out to some members of us, and he said, we really want to support this. Many of us, we're investors in Sovrython. We like this project. How can and people want to participate in this project? I'm participating in this project. I'm on the Blockchain Whispers community as well.
Still, again, what is their path? What is their path? What are the other projects, please?
Yeah. So the two projects that I am mentioning, Exiled, for example.
Not ours. Prior to us, what has Blockchain Whispers been successful at signaling?
Yeah, so BZXY and Fake Protocol is the most relevant for Babelfish. So they really believe on stablecoin innovation.
For the wider crypto community.
Fake Protocol. I don't know if you're familiar with Fake Protocol. It's just an algorithmic stablecoin that has backing by Andreessen Horowitz and Polychain Capital. So Fake Protocol is the one that really called our attention. That's when I spoke with, for example, D and Y, which are sort of like leading this project. This is the one that really convinced me. There's many communities like this in the space, but this one, when he reached out to me and he's like, listen, but we invested in Fake Protocol, you know this, we're sticking with them, even after the, the snafus that happened in the
project. I still don't get why it is they have a preference over sovereign holders where it is that you're launching your token.
Sure. So I was just explaining who they are and other projects that they've been they've done in the past. Now, when it comes to preference, right? By being part of this large community, it really helps to jumpstart and create a lot of the hype. So Sovereign hasn't spent, Babblefish hasn't spent any marketing money. This is all a community. But yet Babblefish, I'm here in Miami and I'm hearing about Babblefish everywhere, right? So we're lucky because we're taking Sovereign's community, but also Babelfish's community. I saw this cool Venn diagram, and then in the middle you have Babelfish. Someone did some data analysis comparing how many people from Sovereign's Discord were in our Discord like 3 weeks ago, and it was just about 20% of Sovereign members from the Discord channel. So that's the value that it's being created right now. All of the excitement, all of the noise, much of it is coming from Sovereign, but a lot of it is coming from Blockchain Whispers. So what do? It's like asking, what does Anonymous do? You cannot really know what do they do. You cannot really know who they are, but it's a wide community, and just like them, there's many. And why are they getting this initial deal? It's because many of them are already part in our community, helping from marketing to community management. But even though they're getting in first, they can buy less because it's such a large community, as I mentioned, over probably around 250,000 people in this specific group. We limited the maximum that Blockchain Whispers members can buy to 2,000 per wallet, whereas the public sale is 3,000 per wallet. And in the public sale, as soon as the token sale is complete, it's 50% immediately liquid, right? We believe that people that are getting it on the second sale or people that are getting the airdrop understand the simplicity and the beauty of the project that we want to build, and will hold and understand the value of the governance to really do cool stuff with stable coins and on Bitcoin as well. But yeah, they have that benefit that 50% vests immediately, whereas Blockchain Whispers, it doesn't. It just vests linearly over 10 months. So we really think that it's possible to make everyone happy. We see the consequence of this at the United Nations, but we tried our best. Unlike most projects, it's true. And unlike most projects, we actually opened up to the community to get their feedback on how to do it.
I was laughing with you, not at you.
It's true. But we're trying.
I sometimes find it amazing that even two people can get along. It's like there's what is it, 9 billion people on the planet. That's from my point of view, 9 billion different universes. It's amazing that we can even share a single language with each other, let alone organize.
I think that's what's amazing. The organization is happening, and credits also to you, Exiled. I think you've been very helpful to organize many things, most in particular this Sovrython. But yeah, I was actually speaking with someone here in Miami that, because Babelfish translation device and communication, maybe in the future, I think by the end of this decade, we will just communicate in memes. So you're having an argument with your wife or your girlfriend, and you just push a song, right? Maybe we won't need words to communicate anymore. And that's how we will begin to understand. It's not about words.
I hope that we still need bodies for sex, though. I'll tell you that much. I'm just like.
Yes, I hope so too. I'm with you.
You better. Being a Latin lover. Yeah, cool. So the next thing that I want to talk about is overall. So let's talk about some numbers for stable coins. In terms of volume, what is it we see in the market? What do you see as a prediction for this year? There's a lot of hype around stable coins. I think it's NFTs have people's mind share at the moment, but stable coins are entering the dialogue. What sort of volume do you see across all chains, across all exchanges happening this year, and project that for us a little bit further forward?
Yeah. So I guess going back to around 2018, back then the total USD stablecoin float out there, or stablecoins issued, was about 4 billion, I think, in 2018. It was tiny. And then it started growing really fast. And then just from 2020 to 2021, over the past year, it's grown 10x. So we've had the fastest growth ever in stablecoin issuance. What we've seen from 2018, which is kind of like since I started sort of researching the space, to now, it's just suddenly it clicked that, oh wow, we have lending markets now. Suddenly, like, people figured out this recipe that you can, it works. For example, if you want to take a loan, it's not a taxable event, or like, just to make markets more efficient to go long or short. These markets are becoming more evolved. I think that as institutions get also deep into Bitcoin, we will see legitimate quote unquote stablecoin issuers like USDC grow even faster, because these stablecoins will be needed for them to do trading in the markets. So it's at around 100 billion right now, but then all of these stablecoins, it's 100 billion issued, but then you take them to DeFi, so then you're locking $1 on compound, and then you get another dollar from, you get a compound dollar, and then that compound dollar you take it to Curve, and then you take that Curve compound dollar and you take it elsewhere. So we have a lot of systemic risks in the space. That is something that I am concerned, but yeah, we're kind of like making this, that's kind of like the nature. It's kind of like against Bitcoin's core value. This was also kind of discussed in the event here, like Austrian economics, like how much do we need leverage in the space? I think that it does help to find fair market value, and it helps create innovation and grow the space, but there is a lot of systemic risk. And I think, yeah, so in terms of issuance, I think it's quite likely that by this time next year, we're gonna be already at 1 trillion stablecoins issued directly. And once we have 1 trillion in stablecoins issued, then we're talking about a real economy being built on the decentralized economy. Like, that's the minimum that we would need in terms of dollars. And then you multiply that 1 trillion by all of these different protocols in DeFi and CeFi happening, and then you have something really exciting, but also a lot of systemic risk that we need to be aware of. I think we're going to have a lot of surprises.
What do you think those systemic risks are?
That's what I hope, that together with the governance, we will attract a lot of people that can help us value what a stablecoin is worth or isn't, and what are the parameters that we should have in the baskets. But there's different risks. There's risks of from
well,
compliance.
Let's talk about CBDCs, right? Do you see CBDCs as being one of the competitors, or not, to stablecoins?
That's also a great question. I think so. If we're talking USD stablecoins, I think that America or the Treasury or the Reserve, which is not federal nor does it have a reserve, but they have a catch-22 moment here with Bitcoin. So the yuan is rising, so there's nothing they can do about it. China is rising, and America at the same time is printing more than it's printed ever, and so that's inevitable. So how do they remain competitive? They need to have also their own CBDC, one that represents a bit more freedom. They both have control. They're both, state surveillance. But, I would rather have personally, I would rather have an American CBDC than a Chinese CBDC, at least today. Now, the catch-22 here is that if they knock down Bitcoin, then all of the stablecoin innovation, which is happening around the dollar, will dissipate, because at the end, we're all here for Bitcoin. And if they let it continue, then they may have, private issuers, they completely lose monetary policy power to private issuers. And so I think that's kind of like the dilemma that we're now here with the dollar. So I really think that what many people have been predicting, and that's what seems likely, and it's very it's the history of the United States. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's all about competitive markets and allowing private participants to innovate. And I think like that, basically, Bitcoin is always the trailblazer, and it's trailblazing, and then the private stablecoin issuers are trailblazing behind it. And then comes, the dollar CBDC that is sort of like holding the knife, which are these private stablecoin issuers trailblazing for them. So at the end of the day, it will benefit the dollar. And then at eventually the long-term end of this is that we all know that, these fiat pegs, we hope they're going to be temporary until we find some other pegged assets that we can start using with different communities. Not the entire world needs to agree on the same peg, and that's a beautiful thing about decentralized markets. We can have different communities, and then they all settle eventually on Bitcoin. It can be a barter economy at the end of the day. So that's why I find stablecoins or pegged coins so exciting, because we really don't know where they are, but where they are right now, it's in the middle of it. It's in the middle, right next. CBDCs are as important as Bitcoin, right? It's that battle that and stablecoins are right there. So pegged assets are right there.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more technically then about Babelfish. So correct me if I'm wrong. So about 2 years ago, or maybe even 2.5 years ago, Edon contacted me regarding Cement DAO, which was going to be a basket of stablecoins. That was the first time that I heard about the idea. You've been working with Edon longer. Did this come out of the Cement DAO project? Because when I was talking to him, it was very much the conceptual phase. There were just a couple of engineers there, and then, as far as I'm aware, you're kind of like part of that original thinking, or no?
Yes. So there's no Cement DAO technology being used on Babelfish. Again, the markets were so different back then. So when Yago was working on Cement DAO, this idea of creating a stablecoin clearinghouse, because there were no lending markets, we had to create our own sort of like incentives. It was really cool to get into that space early for me personally. I got to basically, while most of the research on the tech side was going, I went on and created sort of the first blog on stablecoins, sort of identifying for the first time, I think, in this space that, if you don't do it, nobody else will. So I identified over 100 something stablecoin projects that were working at the moment.
100?
Reached over 100.
Wow.
In 2018, yes, over 100, and many of them, most of them failed, right? And that's a problem that we also, Babelfish can also help. If there's demand that can be found for them, and they can be added to the basket somehow. That's another thing. So there were over 100.
What we're talking about is stable coins on a community level. We're talking about Bitcoin Beach stable coin. There's a growing economy there, okay, and whatever, and they want to be transacting, so backed by Bitcoin, and there wouldn't be enough liquidity for them, but because of the awareness that we
Correct.
have, there could literally be a Bitcoin Beach BBS, Bitcoin Beach stablecoin backed by Bitcoin that would then be part of this basket. And if that was if we percolated that out in the sense of ripples, we'd have intersecting communities that have their own local currencies that are backed by Bitcoin, which then find pooled liquidity through the Babelfish Money Protocol. Is that a pretty accurate statement?
I think that's a very cool thing that's like another differentiator of Babelfish, is that exactly the Bitcoin pool for insurance that we have eventually may be large enough that it will allow us to do also cool experimentation with Bitcoin-backed stablecoins and combine it somehow if they are earning yield on Bitcoin, for example, and sort of like integrate more easily.
Cool. And what are the oracles? So you guys have an Oracle implementation, as far as I'm aware as well, that we're using. You want to talk a little bit about your Oracle and where you're getting your data from and how that's implemented technically?
Yeah. So the technical side, there's another member on Discord, Dark Matter, World Dark, and he's like more a better person. He's been being very helpful in creating the basket, and you know, it's an old. He's the fish with gray hair, I would say.
I've got the gray beard. He's got the gray hair,
right? But something that I can tell you about why Babelfish it's so cool for a multi-chain world, or stablecoins are actually the coolest thing for a multi-chain world. And I think Tether knows this secret for a while. It's that, you know, it's $1, right? So when you're just a one, it just makes everything much easier than when you're a volatile asset. It's much easier.
One of the few things that I'm willing to give Brock Pierce credit for is being involved with Tether. So, but elsewhere I have a lot of criticisms. But yeah, but one-to-one is something in people's brains, and I have to admit, so from the beginning, you know, the amount of decimals, so the potential infinite divisibility of Bitcoin as a scarce resource. So we just increase the decimals if we have larger scaling, was always really interesting to me, you know. So, and also watching people, you know, thinking I can't afford Bitcoin because the price of one Bitcoin is out of my reach, whether it was at $200 or whether it's at $60,000. People can't wrap their heads around the decimalization of an asset. So I agree with you that stable coins sort of make that cognitive dissonance that people have with being able to calculate what is worth as being something that will be driving crypto acceptance forward. At some point, you know, the dream is that people aren't even aware that they're using Bitcoin. We've been talking about that for years. It's been a goal, and the current narrative is that stablecoins will offer that because they intersect with current understanding and current finance regulation, more likely to be accepting of stablecoins as well. Although they've been, you know, very, very cagey about it so far, but I think that Wall Street and finance will be driving them forward because every bank can have their own stable coin that's backed by the reputation of their bank. And if you look at, I'm sure you listened a bit to Smuggler's Talk before you came on, where he's talking about DBCs and a system that the asset is not really relevant. What's only relevant is the trustlessness and the privacy and anonymity set of the transaction. These are all things that seem to be coalescing into a direction that we're all discovering ourselves as well, right? Those of us that have been around in this space, it's been discussed, but it's also a discovery narrative. I think the next years are going to be very, very messy, full of storms and potholes with projects coming and going. But it's interesting and actually really exciting to see the debate shifting from layer 0 and now on layer 2. And that's what fascinates me also about Sovereign is the composability, the EVM, and all the things that they enable. I'm looking forward to a complete shift in the debate where we're talking about the relative merits and the trade-offs that each individual asset or chain is making. It's pretty rich ecosystem that's developing in front of us, and as a Bitcoin mutant, you know, I find it all be incredibly exciting. What are some of the other projects in the space, in the DeFi space that you're also really excited about? Which other protocols, which other thing and projects that are happening?
Well, there's plenty, but I'll go just from what you were saying here. It's you're right. It's about communities and shared agreements, and yes, exactly, familiar currencies to be able to understand this great UI mobile apps that, you know, just so happen to use Bitcoin, right? So I was in Colombia recently, and there was, for example, this cool project that what they were doing, they were helping Venezuelan refugees send remittances to Venezuela, right? So Venezuela, it's kind of counterintuitive, but it's one of the most banked nations in the world because it was a wealthy nation until recently.
Well, oil country. So,
yeah. But so the way it would do it, you would go to like a kiosk or even just send like a wire payment, and then with Colombian pesos. And then what you would do, they would use the liquidity in local Bitcoins to buy Bitcoin, lock it at that price. And then basically that price, they would print it in the UI, they would show it in dollars, right? So for all they know, they're just exchanging pesos for dollars. And then they would send that via the same app to someone in Venezuela. And when that person in Venezuela wanted to claim those dollars, they would just go to local Bitcoin on the other end, and they would sell that Bitcoin, and they would ask the local Bitcoin buyer to send the money to an account, and they would sort of like intermediate that. So that's one cool example of what you're saying, that people don't even know.
I really wonder when people say, you know, governments are going to ban Bitcoin. I just like wonder how they can even possibly do it when you have 35 app developers. You know what I mean? There's always people that are developing their own local version. How it's literally, where would you even begin as a government other than a blanket ban? And the blanket bans have worked incredibly well for prostitution and drugs, as far as I can tell, you know, so.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's financial apartheid. It's financial apartheid, and you see it in countries like Iran and in Venezuela, while the people that are in power.
Power in Iran, right? Did you get that statistic last week?
Which?
5% of Bitcoin's hash rate is in Iran. Okay.
I did not know that. Wow.
Right, and that's just like, if that isn't a proof of the American use case, I can't think of very many countries that have suffered longer under financial sanctions, American financial sanctions, except for maybe the Palestinians. But there's Bitcoin's use case writ large. Here's a nation that has been made a pariah, a financial pariah, with economic sanctions decade on decade. And they're now essentially monetizing their oil via Bitcoin. So I'm curious, how do you see the future? Because everybody comes into this space and is like, okay, but it can get banned. The likelihood of that happening seems to be shrinking and shrinking and shrinking for me, other than on some sort of like moral level. Yeah.
Yes, well, this is a conversation that we can have forever, Exiled. You know, this is a conversation that it has so many ways to go. But what I really find interesting is that, you know, even Bitcoin maxis, you know, agree with stable coins. Like if there's one thing that they're okay with Bitcoin, but then they will accept Tether, right? Because they understand it's needed. So I find that really cool.
I think that people are willing to accept Tether is because it's a non-volatile denomination, and you can move in and out of it. It's just like a, you know, it's a bridge currency that you can look at. You go, okay, this month I don't want to even look at my Bitcoin holdings, you know, because I've got rent to pay this month, and so I'm just keeping that USDT on my MetaMask because I know, okay, this month, regardless of what happens, I'm gonna, you know, pay my rent and my gas bill and whatever. So I think that's pretty clearly established. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. So, but yeah, I just find it interesting that, you know, it's like, you know, like all this inflation, a lot of dollars, it's sort of like the anteroom to hyper Bitcoinization. So before that, we're seeing, for example, Strike here, the historic announcement. You know, like we are hoping, you know, Strike, you're also using, you're using Satoshi, but you're also using stable coins, if I'm not mistaken. So it's really interesting how they're complementing each other temporarily, just because it's a familiar currency that we need for now, until eventually exactly how the future will be. I don't know, can it be banned? I don't know. I think there's so many benefits for every government is benefiting from it. You know, you have in El Salvador, Bukele, he's extreme right wing, and then you have in Venezuela, Maduro, and he's extreme left wing. What happens if he were to announce what Bukele announced, right? So you have from both ends of the spectrum. The difference is, of course, if apparently what El Salvador is going to do, and this is an important distinction because I do think it's an important distinction. It's that, you know, nobody knows how much Bitcoin the Venezuelan government is having. Nobody knows any data about anything. There's been no official data about anything printed for a decade at least. Whereas what Strike wants to do in there, it would really provide transparency. So the whole point of what we're doing is transparency. We want cryptographic laws for lawless nations. And I think the future, decentralized future, it's chaotic, but needs to be ruled by cryptographic laws. And I think we're entering a very interesting decade as China rises. And I see almost like Bitcoin, because of stable coins that are, dollar, the trusted network that is being hacked into a trustless network. I see almost like the dollar is visually, the dollar is evaporating into Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin is breaking into many pieces around the world. It's almost like the American gift of freedom. The idea of American freedom is going to spread through the world as it should be, not as it's become, kind of, if that makes sense.
What a way to end! What a way to end to close an hour. Yeah, I think this sort of utopian dreaming and desire to improve the life of people through financial services and cryptographic protocols is one of the things that drew me originally to the space. This whole cypherpunks write code. It's not just like going out there and carrying a sign or voting or whatever. It's truly a complete paradigm shift in having a consensus rule set that you can opt into rather being born into, right? So we're each born into a set of fictitious borders where even if you're Venezuelan, right, and your dad was Chinese and you were born in then America, you have that rule set that's just laid on you. It's a very, very interesting
limited
civilizational development that it's an opt-in system for consensus or not. And the fact that rogue nations as well as recognized nations, it's all permissionless, it's borderless. There's no one that can be forbidden in participating in the system other than by actual physical force. And despite the wars that we see, happening around the planet still, percentage-wise, we have less people dying from wars and conflict now than ever before, right?
Well, that's arguable because only takes one big bomb to change that statistic.
I don't think that there's ever going to be that big bomb, but that's a discussion for another time. But I think that we are tending towards less actual conflict civilizationally, and having this set of transparent rules being part of the toolbox is a very, very inspirational development. Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. I think that's the reason that we are all here for, and I think that's why it's exciting to be part of this. It takes a few touch points. Some people, not everybody sees it immediately, but once you get it, you never really go back. That's why it's called red pill. It really opens your eyes to the matrix to realize that everything we're just being programmed, and we need to be deprogrammed and recreate the world as we want it to be. And we do have the power with technology, which is something that economists didn't have before as a tool, and all of these revolutionaries. Now we have technology to do, something that can be really exciting and definitely very chaotic. But we're proving something really cool here with Sovereign. Yeah.
So I have a really interesting. So we'll close this off with a question from the Discord chat channel. So everybody that's watching out there, if you go to sovrython.sovereign.app instead of YouTube, you have a live stream window by clicking on the button, and you have also direct access into Discord chat. We're using Discord chat instead of YouTube comments because of all the spam that you normally see in those sort of things, and also to help draw you into our community. Anyway, somebody's asked in the Discord chat if Babelfish will eventually evolve to have a savings feature like Anchor Protocol.
So those are all questions that I would say it's possible, but our focus is mostly on getting Bitcoin insurance and rewarding fish stakers. That's our strategy to begin with, but this is the alpha proposal. And all of this, if you want to see something like this, once we have governance up, please propose your ideas, why you think this would be preferable to using Bitcoin, to using it to buy Bitcoin insurance, for example.
So as a last thing, we got a couple more minutes. As a last thing, one of the things that's really cool about the Babelfish community is the amazing art that's coming out of it. So you guys had a logo competition. That was really like, how did you settle on the one? Right? There were so many great submissions for the logo. Incredibly active community. Maybe talk a little bit about, do some name dropping of some of the great artists that you have in the community and what's going on.
Sure. Yeah. So I think the logo competition took place probably about a month after our first tweet. There was just a lot of buzz about it. The name and the idea really clicked with people to understand what we're building. Plus, again, the different communities that we're bringing. And you know, not everybody can code, but if you can't code, you can meme, or you can write. You can do many things. And so, putting what you think about Babelfish in one image really attracted a lot of people. We created a bounty until we have Fission, the token generation event. We said, you know what, we have a lot of community. They want to participate. How can we? Because it's all about the community. Well, we need a logo, not just an emoji, which was a cool emoji, but we need a proper logo. So we announced a bounty, 420K fish for different tasks. One of them was for the logo. We were looking for different submissions, and we said that, you know, we would reward the top 3 candidates. And we had just a flood. I think it was, again, over 120. And someone else from the community, and that's very active, Novax, he did like a GIF of all of the submissions that happened in there. And then we had, for example, Flametail. He's also very active. He was sort of like doing the competition, organizing it. And then Hyde, which actually is a community manager that we have, his logo won, right? People were saying, oh, this was probably corrupt, but no, I mean, we can share, Flametail can share with you the results. So it's amazing that even before we have governance, we are really sticking with it. I had my favorite, people in the team had their favorites. I had my own ideas. But this part of democracy, we're trying to do as much as we can by opening up for a vote. Not all decisions will be able to be put up for a vote, but that was one very great example of how we came with it. I actually like it. It's actually, people were also proposing calling it XD, because it looks like a smile and because it looks like a fish too. And it's cool. It was kind of like the crypto fish of the early Christians in the Roman Empire. So fish has a lot of symbology. So fish and space, we really love our brand. There's a lot to do together with Sovereign, together with, for example, Tropicus Finance as well. There's many things happening in RSK. There's a lot that can be done with the Babelfish brand, and the community is super pumped. And we're thinking the things that we're talking about. People want to do sort of like a cypherpunk style NFT drop for everyone. So it's like pixelated different types of fish, because there's so many fish varieties. There's many cool ideas. We will see how we can bring it all together. But so far, Sovereign serves as a very good example of how to create order from disorder in a way. And eventually the community understands that it's chaotic, and it's a community that basically embraces chaos, right? And so long as you do that and you're willing to take the risk and really participate, people will notice you.
I think what's really cool about both the Sovereign and the Babelfish communities is that the level of dialogue has a lot of mutual respect. You don't see flame wars and hate and that sort of stuff. Is very, it seems that people who are tired of the normal, fighting elsewhere online are gravitating to both our communities, and it's really inspiring. So cool. We got to change over to the next guest. Thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy Miami.
Thank you, Exiled. I will.
I will see you online, man. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.